Keys to victory for those San Francisco 49ers to defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 10, and 3 49ers that will be on the field that were not the last time this team played pre-bye, and Steve Wilks on the sideline. What does that mean? All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker with you at BD Peacock, at Eric_Crocker. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there. We appreciate you. See some of you jumping into our weekending live show that we like to do on Thursday evenings. It'll still be up for you, though, first thing in the morning on your commute or whenever you listen to Locked On 49ers, whether it's on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code, all lowercase, LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. So good news. Thursday's practice, Trent Williams was on the field at the very least in some limited fashion, which means there is an opportunity now that Trent Williams might be able to go here in Week 10 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And that is such an important piece for, obviously, the San Francisco's offensive line there. Even though Jalen Moore's done okay in his absence and already going to be a replacement left guard there for Aaron Banks, who is out. And it's just everything runs a little bit smoother when Big Trent's out there, number 71 at left tackle. So that one's really important, and that's very good news for the 49ers. Deebo Samuel already full go this week at practice. He's missed a few weeks. And Chase Young, they traded for him to the deadline. Kyle Shanahan said he will have a definitive role for the San Francisco 49ers in Jacksonville in Week 10. Those are 3 potentially big-time difference-making players that are going to be on the field for the Niners that weren't on the field for those 3 losses for the most part for San Francisco.
That might be the difference for the 49ers to kind of get over the hump and get out of this little rut that they're in right now. 3-game rut, losing 3 straight games, only scoring 17 points in each of those games. Defense not playing well, where you bring back 2 key players on the offensive side of the ball with Deebo Samuel being able to get the ball in his hands, catch and run opportunities. You bring back Trent Williams. Maybe that can slow up some of the pass rush from those Jacksonville Jaguars. And you have Josh Allen over there, who is known to get after the quarterback. And then on the other side of the ball, a guy that might help Nick Bosa finish some of these pass rushes that he's getting really close. Pressures, he's right there. Sacks, he's right there. Pressures and QB hits, he's right there. Sacks, not as much, but maybe this can be that one key that allows Nick Bosa to be that game-changing player that he is. So 49ers are going to definitely need that on the road, 10 a.m. start in Jacksonville.
A few things that I didn't talk with you about yesterday, Croc, because you weren't in the crossover episode with me and Wig from Locked On Jaguars. We had a nice little conversation about some of those matchups and Josh Allen and what that could look like for the 49ers and the way I think this game could potentially go. And I think Trent Williams has a huge impact on that. I think that 3-point line with the 49ers favored in Jacksonville, that hasn't moved yet. It's still 3 points looking at FanDuel right now. That might move. I think just getting Trent Williams back, knowing the 49ers are healthy, I think that's at least a half a point, man. So, and maybe it's all 3 points and maybe it's more than that. So I'm liking that 49ers side of the bet a little bit more now, being favored instead of the home dog, which starting the week, I thought, 3 at home with a good team. That's usually a pretty good bet, but I love knowing Trent Williams has at least a chance to be out there. We don't know for sure if he's going to play yet. But Deebo Samuel, that will change the dynamic of the 49ers offense and could be a very, run-centric, short pass-centric game this week for the 49ers. And maybe they'll be able to open things up a little bit more offensively with Trent Williams out there. So always huge to have the bouncer back for the 49ers. David in the chat says, number 1 versus number 256. I mean, I love it. The first pick in the draft and Trevor Lawrence, the last pick in the draft, not in the same draft, but that's going to be a really fun one. And we're going to get into more of that when we talk about our keys to victory here for the 49ers and what they got to do to beat the Jaguars in Week 10. And of course, in the chat, I want to hear what you guys think the 49ers have to do to beat those Jacksonville Jaguars.
Will you be looking, as it pertains to that, right? Number 1 versus number 256. Will you be looking to see what they look like on the field at the same time? Now, obviously,
Like,
going up against different defenses, but just in general, like what one guy, what he's supposed to be, which is, franchise quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. Like, okay, this is the golden child. This is the guy, 6'6", looks the part. He's athletic. He has the arm. He has all these things. Brock Purdy, they say he doesn't have a lot of those things. Obviously, the height, we can see that. But, with the 49ers, it almost feels like, all right, we want you to be the franchise quarterback. Are you looking to see, how does that play out when those guys are going up against each other? Does this guy look like it's just easier for him, or can this guy do different things than this guy? Obviously you just want to come out with a win, but is there a battle within the battle, like for you when you're watching this game?
I think so. I think it's, just using the scouting eye, right, to see like, okay, well, what really is the difference between a number 1 pick and the last pick? And look, Brock Purdy's already taken on number 1 overall picks. He played against Matthew Stafford earlier on in the year, and the 49ers won that one. But you can see some throws that certain quarterbacks make. They're like, okay, well, maybe Brock doesn't have that, but Brock does have a lot of things that he does extremely well. And so he's always going to have those comparisons. And it's really interesting, too, because both Trevor Lawrence and Wig mentioned this on yesterday's pod on the crossover, which was a really fun conversation. You got to go check that one out if you haven't. He talked about how, like, for both of these players, because of where they were drafted, it's a little bit of a curse as far as public opinion goes and how fans look at them and how they treat them and what they believe in, what they don't believe in with these two players. But it's the exact opposite of the extreme. So Brock Purdy has to just keep playing amazing. He has to do so much to make people believe that what he's doing is real, that he really is a good quarterback in the NFL. And it's not just Kyle Shanahan's offense. It's not just all the weapons that he has and that he actually is a really good quarterback in the NFL. And then on the other side of things, Trevor Lawrence has to nearly be perfect, or else people look at him and say, oh, well, he's not that good because he's the number 1 pick in the draft. He's not Patrick Mahomes. So they're holding him to almost an impossible standard to hit as the number 1 pick in the draft. And we see that a lot with high draft picks in the first round where you expect a lot more than them. Go all the way back to the 49ers' first draft in Solomon Thomas. If Solomon Thomas was a 3rd, 4th round pick, nobody would have ever cared, right? It's like, hey, we have a defensive lineman. Cool. But since he was the number 3 pick and drafted that high in the first round, he gets this bust label and everyone looks at him in a completely different light. And so I think it's really fascinating because Trevor Lawrence and Brock Purdy are dealing with the same sort of preconceived notions and bias against where they were drafted. And it's really hard for fans to put that aside and media to put that aside and just trust what they're seeing with these quarterbacks. And so that is fascinating. And it is always fun to watch different quarterbacks. And when you really get to see a quarterback, like speaking of another number 1 pick, Joe Burrow a couple of weeks ago, right? And so you watch Burrow, you're like, that guy's good, right? That guy's pretty good. We watched Kirk Cousins, like, you know what? That guy's pretty good too. And Kirk Cousins kind of always been the guy I've compared Brock Purdy to. But then there's been some teams that came in to play the 49ers who were like, oh my God, okay, I thought Brock Purdy was just this to me, whatever, use whatever trope to talk about a quarterback and kind of put him down a little bit. And then Brock Purdy goes and beats you and puts 30 points up. And that guy's actually really good. And so that's always fun to do with any quarterback you play against and someone that you watch from afar and then really dig into him, snap in and snap out for a full game against a team well. And so it's a lot easier to, I think, evaluate a quarterback when they're playing against that defense you watch every week. So that's going to be a ton of fun for me.
You referenced Solomon Thomas there. I want to throw out, he is playing for his former defensive coordinator, the guy that drafted him, Robert Saleh, is playing for him in New York. And I watched him get a sack on Monday night. So I was like, there you go, Solomon Thomas. Let's go.
Our DC says, I would love to never talk about 49ers quarterback, whoever it is, ever again. Well, that is never going to happen for the 49ers, especially the last couple of years, man. And I can pinpoint the date. I've talked about it. It's March 26th, 2021, man. It has been a story for the 49ers. And maybe someday it'll not be a story for the 49ers. And that's up to Brock Purdy just playing lights out against the Jaguars. I think that would be really fun. Okay, more on Steve Wilks, more keys to victory for the San Francisco 49ers against the Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 10 next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And this is how easy PrizePicks is. All you do is you open up the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and you pick two or more players. And with those players, you pick more or less than their projected stats at PrizePicks. You place that entry, and then you could turn $10 into $250. Win up to 25 times your money this football season, having tons of fun playing PrizePicks. And now a little special edition at PrizePicks with the basketball season here. You can now pick combo projections across football and basketball from the Specials League, a league created specifically for combo projections that include two or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, how about Deebo Samuel plus Steph Curry combination, 10.5 combo of 3-pointers made and receptions. I'm taking the more than on that all day when it comes to Steph Curry threes. But tons of fun at PrizePicks, and you can get involved super easy as well. And all you got to do is go to PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That is PrizePicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and use code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy sports made easy. I want to talk a little bit about our friends at JaseMedical.com right now. Whether you're on maybe extended travel with your family, maybe that travel is taking you to somewhere remote where you don't have great cell service. Maybe you're bracing for a major weather event or limited by yet another supply shortage. You are covered with JaseMedical.com. Thanks to our partners at Jase, lifesaving antibiotics and a long list of daily medications can be ordered in a 1-year supply. Even ED generics for Cialis, Viagra, and more prescriptions are available. All you got to do is go online right now at jasemedical.com to receive your 12-month supply on your daily medication. Remember to use promo code LOCKEDON at checkout for a discount as well. Here's what one verified customer had to say about Jase. Quote, "I'm thankful for this service. Supply chain issues caused me to cut pills in half just to have enough. I ordered most of my daily meds with a 1-year supply at Jase. I also ordered antibiotic kit. I feel secure now. Prices are lower than local pharmacies. I highly recommend this service for everyone." End quote. So if you're someone, or maybe your loved ones, you want to have some peace of mind and have that 1 year of supply of those needed daily meds on hand, go to jasemedical.com and see if it's offered for you. Remember, use promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your purchase at jasemedical.com. You folks might notice some extra production elements here as the network's doing big things. I don't know if a lot of you have heard of Fast TV, FAST, free ad-supported television, but Locked On getting their own channel, Locked On Today. You can find it streaming live 24 hours now on YouTube. So subscribe up to that, and also you can find it on certain other apps and smart TVs and things like that. Locked On doing big things. And yeah, of course, you'll see me and Croc up there as well on that 24-hour live Locked On channel. Super pumped for that one. Okay, Croc, I know you got some big thoughts about this one, and you weren't here with Wig and I yesterday. We mentioned that Steve Wilks, the announcement has been made that Steve Wilks is going from the booth calling defensive plays to the sideline. And as Adrian puts it in the chat here, I liked Steve Wilks' energy at the podium today when he was asked about it. And he said, basically, we're all making a big deal about it. It's not that big of a deal. We've talked about how we think that's maybe getting scapegoated is what's happening right now for Steve Wilks. So, Croc, as a player, as a former player, what's your insight? How important do you think it is that Steve Wilks is going from the booth to the sideline right now?
I think along the lines of him, I think people are making a bigger deal out of it than it is. And I don't think that's going to be this magic pill that automatically the 49ers defense starts to play better. I also don't think that the 49ers defense has been bad throughout this year. I do think that they had a couple games that were less than ideal defensively. Outside of that, I didn't see anything that was out of the norm in the sense of defense just being attacked or, an inability to stop opposing teams. So then I said, you know what? I was on Spaces on Twitter with some of my buddies, and I'm listening in, and that was around the time that the news dropped that he will be going to the sideline. And they were like, oh, yeah, about time. He's going to the sideline. I'm on Instagram. I see everybody cheering. They're going crazy. And I'm like, what is the big deal? So I said, you know what? Let me talk to some other former professionals. So I do coach with several guys that played at the NFL level at the high school, Edison High School in Stockton, where I live. And I got their opinion. So first I saw LaVille Hawkins. I said, Hawk, the 49ers just mandated their defensive coordinator to go down to the field. What advantages do you think he'll have being down there? And he's talking to the people in the spaces, and he's like, I don't see any benefits to him going down there. I think it actually is easier when you're up top as far as seeing the plays, how things play out, and you don't get distracted by all the noise on the sideline. You can just focus on the game. I said, okay, that was one person. Let me go to another coach. So I went to the next coach, and that was our head coach, Coach Booker Guyton. He's coached between high school football and college football for 30 plus years. And I asked him his opinion, and he said he feels like coordinators should be in the booth. So that was his thing. You could see more, you're not distracted, etc. He had some of the same thoughts as LaVelle Hawkins, who played 8 years in the NFL. And then my defensive coordinator, this was perfect because he actually played for Vic Fangio with the 49ers. So 1 year, 2014, Desmond Bishop played with the 49ers, Fangio in the booth. And again, Bishop is our defensive coordinator, and I'm on the sidelines with him every game. And I asked his opinion. Hey, man, like, what do you think? You know, and I explained it to him. They're moving him down to the field. And he said, they're just grasping at straws, trying to figure out any way to fix whatever's going on. And he said, it's not going to make a difference. And he said his preference is in the booth. He said that pretty much every coordinator he ever played with was in the booth. So he's like, I don't even know what it's like to have a defensive coordinator down on the field. But he said he likes being up. He said you spend plenty of hours throughout the week doing a lot of prep. So the players really kind of know what to do. So all the information is relayed through the eyes of the assistants. So his thing was, like the other guys, he would rather be in the booth if he can be, as long as he have assistants that can relay information. And he said he thinks he's kind of they're just grasping at straws, trying to figure out anything. So I did have one coach, Coach Snowbar, who said he would rather be on the sideline because he gets to feel the emotions of everything going on and, you know, be able to look guys in the eyes and things like that. So there was one coach that was on more of the side of the fans as opposed to the other coaches that I talked to. So I just wonder, I have my opinion of it, but I'm like, maybe I'm tripping because I think that people are making a bigger deal out of this, but a lot of my coaches on our staff felt the same way.
How do you get the nickname Booger anyway?
Oh, Booker. Sorry, Booker.
I thought he called it Booger.
Coach Book. Yeah.
Like, I was wondering how Booger McFarland got his name too, because it can't be one that you're super jazzed about when you get it. Okay, Book. Okay. There's kind of a Stockton to Cal pipeline too, by the way.
Yeah, LaVelle and Desmond Bishop. But Desmond actually, he commutes to Stockton from Fairfield, or he lives like in that area, Fairfield, Vacaville, or whatever. So he's actually commuting to us. You know, he gets that special connection with Stockton, California. So
seen him lighting up the scoreboard. You got no problems with play callers there in the playoffs from what I've seen so far.
Nah, and Bishop actually talked about, you know, why he's on the sideline with us. And he's like, you know, at high school level, you have to coach so much. So, and if you look on the sideline, you see me very animated. You see Dan. I mean, he's coaching up guys. Hey, move over, bump over. Hey, you got to split this or you got to do this. So we have to coach these guys on every single play. So it's a little different. NFL level, they pretty much know their responsibilities, their jobs. So you don't have to coach as much. You just have to make little minor tweaks here and there.
You shouldn't have to tell Fred Warner or Tano Hufanga to not miss a tackle, right? That shouldn't be something you need to say face to face. And there are other coaches that can do that too. And, you know, they talked about communication. Kyle Shanahan did. You know what's interesting with Kyle though? He's a couple of times he mentioned communication, but he said communicating with the linebackers. Specifically he mentioned the linebackers. So I wonder if there's more there because
Fred Warner wears a green dot. Like he's actually specifically talking to the defensive. I mean, he doesn't get to talk to him, but it's being communicated right to him. So I don't know. Listen, I don't know. I do see this right here, and I have a question. Let's go with this one first. Last 2 games, only 3 punts and very few sacks. Something has to change. This is an easy change. Do you think that 2 games of not playing well at all is worth changing up everything that you do? Like everything that you know, how you gone about things, the things that have got you hired, right? Like it's like, well, Kyle, why did you hire me to be somebody else? Because that's kind of what's going on. You hire me and It's like, all right, this is the defense I want you to run. You have to learn how I want you to learn this defense, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, 2 games in a row, not great, bad defense. Now I want you to do what I would prefer you to be, which is on the sideline. So it's like, well, why'd you hire me in the first place if you're going to change up everything that I do? Like that would annoy me. Like, you just coach the defense.
Yeah, it's like, I really want you to be our defense coordinator, but you got to coach where I say you're going to coach from and call from where I'd say you are. And you got to run my scheme. You don't get to run your own scheme. And you got to be immediately amazing. And you can't screw up for a couple of games and make a bad call because then I'm going to kind of, take you through it publicly. And then now everyone's like, nobody would have known the difference if Kyle didn't say the thing about the bad play call in the first half against the that was the Vikings Monday night, right?
It was a bad play call too. Like, it was a bad play call
at the time. Yeah. And then now doing the booth thing. And the one thing I don't like about it, and I don't think it's a big deal either way, and it shouldn't have a huge impact, and it shouldn't be a negative impact, even if the coach would rather be in the booth if he's on the sideline, and maybe there's some, communication things that can be helped here. But the thing I don't like is that I think it's telling me they don't actually have the answers for what they're trying to fix. And that's what worries me the most, because I don't think this is an answer for it. And it tells me they don't have answers for it. So they're kind of scrambling a little bit. So that's the thing I think I like about it, at least.
That is the part that comes off as more of a panic move with anything. Now, we do have Garrison in the chat, and he says, you have no idea what you're talking about. Were you in the room when Shanahan talked to Wilks? No, but we heard what Shanahan said to us, which was, I'll talk to him about being on the field. They must have had that conversation because now Wilks is on the field. So I don't know how much we missed within that. Maybe they're just trying something different, but Wilks told us, guys are making a big deal out of it. It's not that big a deal, but it's definitely different than what he's done in the past. And this has been forced upon him.
You can't miss 30 tackles in 3 games. You just can't do it. It's just like turnovers. It's like anything. Fundamentals, and the 49ers are too good to play poorly like they have 3 games in a row. So that's the big thing that's got to change. And I agree with Kyle. He says the answers are already in the building. Just play better. So, keys to victory. What specifically do the 49ers have to do to beat those Jacksonville Jaguars in Week 10? Next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by BetterHelp Online Therapy. Have you ever struggled with the seasonal blues? When it starts to be a lot more dark outside than it is light, the sun starts going down pretty darn early. End of the year season, and can be rough for some folks for multiple reasons. With the holidays, some people look forward to the holidays and they love them. Some people, they hate this time of year, and maybe it's not the most fun for you, depending on what's going on in your life and your family and some struggles you may have. So this time of year can be a lot, and it's natural to feel some of that sadness or anxiety about it. But adding something new and positive in your life can counteract some of those things. And therapy can be that bright spot amid a lot of the stress and change that can be happening in your life. Something to look forward to, that check-in every week to make you feel grounded and give you the tools to manage everything going on in your life. So if you're thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched with a licensed therapist. And if you don't hit it off with that therapist, that's okay. You can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. So find your bright spot this season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today and get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, here we go, Croc. Keys to victory for those San Francisco 49ers to defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I'm going to start with, it always starts up front, right? But I think both teams, especially if Trent Williams doesn't play, but if he does play, like we saw what the game plan was against the Cleveland Browns. And then when the Niners got banged up, it just sort of changed everything. And I think it's going to be a similar game plan here. I think we're going to see a lot of Deebo early. He's going to be in motion everywhere. They're going to try to get him the ball. They're going to try to run the ball, but the Jacksonville Jaguars are really good against the run. So if the Jaguars are able to stop the run, it'll help to have Trent out there and, create some of those big runs to the left side. the 49ers, I think, are going to lean on the quick passing game, and especially if Trent Williams isn't out there, so they can keep their quarterback clean, so they can create some plays and catch and run situations. The Jacksonville Jaguars tend to play the too deep coverage. They like to come up and tackle. They allow you to catch the ball underneath and come up and tackle. So can they tackle Deebo Samuel on the regular? Can they tackle Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield and George Kittle finding those soft spots and in those catch and run situations? So that's what I'm looking for in this game, catch and run. And obviously the 49ers can run the ball too. That's going to be a big help. But that's one thing that the Jaguars have done really well this year. So catch and run, make the Jacksonville Jaguars be the team that's missing all their tackles, and they're moving their defensive coordinator around next week because they had a hell of a time against the 49ers. Like that's the goal for the 49ers in this one. And Niners, you guys make those tackles this time.
Definitely. We have Ernest in the chat, and he says, Eric Crocker, do you think in your prime you could tackle Deebo or McCaffrey in the open field? And the answer to that is I could, but I wouldn't want to. All right. And that's what I think some of these guys have to feel in this game when you're playing against Jacksonville Jaguars. Like, get these guys in open field. Make guys have to make those business decisions, as we see defensive backs do all the time when it comes to Deebo Samuel. They don't want to tackle that guy. He's a load to bring down. I think for the 49ers, one of the first keys to me is no late game turnovers. I think, again, the defense hasn't been good at all. You got to help them out a little bit. How are you going to help them? Don't turn the ball over late in games. I think that could really help kind of get things kicked off in the right direction for them. We all know that turnovers really decide games. If you win the turnover margin, you're probably going to win. If you lose it, you're probably going to lose. And if you look at the last two games, 49ers are losing the turnover margin. So taking care of the football, and especially late games, so that situational football at the end, let's be better at that. And I think if the 49ers were better than that over the last 2 weeks, they'd be 2-0. And I think we'd be having a slightly different conversation.
Alonzo has a good question here, and it's part of the complementary football that the 49ers haven't been able to play because the offense can't put up points, can't keep long drives going, and the defense stays on the field too much, and they can't give the ball back to the offense, and vice versa. It's just a cyclical thing, and then all of a sudden you're only scoring 17 points on offense, and the other team's scoring more than that. Alonzo says, how do you guys think we stop or at least slow down the short passing game? Seems to be the key to slowing down our pass rush. And yeah, that's what teams do against the 49ers. And the Niners brought in another guy in Chase Young now. Can you get to the quarterback in time? And especially the last two games, you saw Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins, who were masterful at getting the ball out on time, getting the ball out quickly to their playmakers and avoiding the 49ers pass rush. And there's so many times when and this is what John Lynch was talking about when he was asked about the only the 2 or 3 sacks that Nick Bosa has this year. And he said that Bosa's dominating still, and it's because he's got a ton of pressures. He's near the top of the league in pressures. He's just that one step away from getting there a lot of times, and maybe having another pass rusher coming from the other side to flush out a quarterback and push that quarterback into each other's arms will be one, but. You got to play. You got to tighten up your coverage and know that the other team is going to come with a quick passing game, try to get the ball out quick to defeat what the 49ers' strength that just got stronger is. I don't know if I have a great answer for it, Croc. Do you have a good answer for that? Because that's obviously one of the huge keys. We even saw it against the Falcons last year against a quarterback who's not like that sort of a quarterback that you're worried about dicing you up. It was Marcus Mariota. They only had one incompletion in that game. And that's definitely been something that teams try to do. And if they're able to do it, it keeps the 49ers defense on the field and it keeps the 49ers offense off the field.
I think when you go back to that Falcons game, 49ers had a lot of guys out, a lot of starters out. So maybe that had some effects on, the quick game and whatnot. But yeah, there is a trend there. And you look at the last 2 weeks with Joe Burrow and Kirk Cousins. That's actually a strength of theirs. They're really good quarterbacks. Burrow, I think some would say, is an elite quarterback. And maybe Kirk Cousins kind of trending that way. I feel like people are starting to get more and more on board with how good of a quarterback that Kirk Cousins is. So, those are two guys that definitely know how to play at a high level IQ, and they can get the ball out of their hands quick. Can Trevor Lawrence be that guy this early in his career? If you can force him to maybe hold on to the ball a tick longer, maybe that would help you maybe get to the quarterback and get those sacks because he hasn't still seen everything. So maybe late movement defensively could maybe help slow things down with his progression, and maybe you can get some sacks there.
Yeah, and then it's complementary, right? So what happens on early downs if the Jaguars are able to run the ball and you're not tackling well, now that's 3rd and short. So those quick passes get first downs instead of quick passes coming up short of the sticks too. And then that 3rd and long is what you're trying to get to. So stop the run. So they're in 3rd and long. So it can't be a quick passing game. So you have time to get there with your pass rushers. Now you're creating big plays. You're creating sacks. You're getting off the field, getting the ball back to your offense. So, yeah, it all works together. The 49ers had not been playing complementary ball the last few weeks.
There is one problem that a guy like even on 3rd down and you can play man coverage and you have Trevor Lawrence back there. The one thing that he can do, like we saw with Burrow, is make a play with his legs. And Trevor Lawrence is more athletic than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow can move. Trevor Lawrence is athletic. So I think that should be another key as well, being able to contain him and kind of limit those 3rd down runs by Trevor Lawrence, because those can be backbreaking. I think when you are, everything is covered up on the back end, but man, somebody loses containment with their pass rush, and next thing you know, you got this 6'6" quarterback striding through the middle of your defense, picking up 15 yards real fast. Like those are back-breaking plays on 3rd down.
And look, I don't know what the usage numbers are for Travis Etienne. Every time I watch the Jaguars, he's been almost their whole offense, more than I thought there'd be guys like I thought Ridley and Christian Kirk's kind of been their number 1 wide receiver. But man, they run this offense just like the 49ers have been running their offense through McCaffrey. They run their offense through Travis Etienne, and they've given him a full workload, catching the ball out of the backfield. So you absolutely got to tackle him, and he's a pretty explosive player. Lima in the chat says 35-10. Croc, I made my prediction yesterday. I think it's going to be more of a low-scoring game. I feel a lot better with knowing that the 49ers have a couple of really big-time players on the practice field this week, and might see Trent out there, might see, and we'll definitely see Deebo Samuel out there. Any quick predictions before we go, Croc?
Yeah, I think that the 49ers get back to winning as long as the weather, and I haven't checked on the weather in Florida, but we know it can kind of get weird. It's sunny and then all of a sudden it's raining and storming. But as long as the weather is good, I see a 27-20 win for the 49ers.
It's going to be warm, I think. 70 degrees right now in Jacksonville. Nice. So, yeah. Thanks, everybody, for making Locked On 49ers your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Keep an eye out for the streaming Locked On Today live 24-hour stream of all the shows, all the hosts on the Locked On Podcast Network. Find that in your local listings and your smart TVs, and you can find it on YouTube as well. Make sure you are subscribed, of course, to Locked On 49ers on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. Croc and I back post-game to break it all down right here, Locked On 49ers.